Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We are back on the dev server, and I thought we'd have a look at the F-5T SCU. This is a new Thai vehicle that is coming to the Japanese tree in the next major update, and it is known as the Tigris, which is a fantastic name. This is a massively upgraded F5 that is coming in, and it has a lot of bells and whistles that will make it pretty interesting. It also has a cool cockpit, which I just kind of wanted to show off and show you what's going on with it. So it's in the tech tree for the Thai stuff. It's actually one of the later variants in the center of it, whereas you have the two other vehicles, the A7E and the AV8S, just before the F16AJ. All of the other Thai vehicles are in this line here. So it just comes after the F5A and before the F16, which shouldn't be too surprising. Now, this vehicle is 11.3 in air and 11.0 in ground, but because of its weaponry, I feel like it's going to be useful in both, especially on the maps. The F5 is actually one of my favorites kind of dogfighters in War Thunder, and the simple fact is it has a very good kind of thrust to weight ratio, and at the same time, it doesn't have a huge heat signature, which means it's really easy to countermeasure off missiles that are coming after you, and also, you know, dogfight very well with it. So this vehicle, the engines are the General Electric J85G21As. They have 2200 afterburner thrust each in this setup. Also, the rest of it is just made out of fuel, but the more interesting parts of it are the guns, where you have two 20mm M39A3s. Both of these have quite a lot of ammo in them, 280, so you won't run out of guns anytime soon. One of the big issues around this BR is obviously a lot of vehicles start going for more IR guided missiles and semi-active guided missiles, and the guns are kind of forgotten about, so a ton of vehicles have not a lot of ammunition. That's different in the F5s. The F5s actually have quite a lot. Then it has a radar. This is the AN/APQ-159. It's fine, you know, it's good for tracking targets and understanding how far they are away from you, and also giving you the EEGS, which is on the cannons, which means that you can line up the guns a little bit better if you're on a good ping. Then you also have CCIP for the cannons, rockets and bombs, also get CCRP. That means that it can be used more in a ground setup too, and also a pretty good RWR, the ANALR 46V3, which covers the E and J bands of it. This thing also has HMS, which is a big plus from it. I think it might be the lowest BR HMS vehicle that we have in the game, and that just adds an extra level to this wonderful vehicle. Countermeasures wise, it's also a bit wild. So you have 15 large caliber countermeasures, and then also 30 countermeasures on top of that. Usually with the F5s, like if you have a look at the American one, the F5A, C, and also E. The E has... oh, never mind, it has the same. Did they change that at some point? I don't remember it being like that. But the F5C and the F5A have the standard 60 countermeasures. So this one is set up more like the F5E instead. So if you're used to that one, you'll be used to this one too. Now, the other part of it that is also more surprising is it's pretty heavily armed in the secondary area. You can see by the modifications that you have some incendiaries if you really want to use them, or rockets or bombs, but that isn't really where this thing shines. Instead, where this thing shines is its missile loadouts, and that will make it a lot more fun. So first of all, it has stock AIM-9Ls. The AIM-9Ls are the all-aspect AIM-9s, and they're super powerful. So if you end up running into stuff with them, you'll able to engage them from pretty much any distance. And also, since this thing has great acceleration and also can turn very well, you can use the AIM-9Ls to make the vehicles that are around kind of dodge and dip and dive, and then you'll be able to catch them with the engines and be able to kill them with the guns. It also gets Python 3s. Now, Python 3s are something which are on a few vehicles in the game. I believe the Squadron F5 for Japan has these things. But the Python 3s have weird setups. So the major problem with Python 3s is that they don't get IRCCM, and because they're insanely good missiles, a lot of kind of countries don't have them. at the BRs where, you know, you really want to use them, because you want to just use the other vehicles, or sorry, the other missiles that have IRCCM. But at this BR, at 11.3, you don't have that. So instead, they're just kind of a direct upgrade over the standard AIM-9L. You can see here the AIM-9L has 30G overload, which is fantastic, Mach 2 and 2.5 maximum speed, and also 60 seconds of missile guidance time, whereas the Python 3 has Mach 3.5 maximum speed, 40G overload, and 20 seconds of missile guidance time. So depending on how you feel about it, you can either get the AIM-9Ls, which have a bit longer of a distance that they can cover, and also track the target, so they're a bit more of a long-range missile, or you can get dogfighting in this thing and use the Pythons to hammer down people with them. So the other thing is these are also all aspects, so you can use them in those ways too. Now, the problem with this, though, is the amount of missiles that you can bring for air-to-air is still only 2. So they only have these kind of like edge of the wing setups. There's no setups under the wings, which kind of sucks, because obviously having both of these would be fantastic. But instead, you're just going to have to pick and choose. But with the AIM-9Ls being stock, I think that'll generally be people's pick. So you have the incendiaries, you know, the dumb bombs, the rockets, that all turn up. And then you have a CAS option, which will make this thing a lot more fun to play. The AGM-65Bs are in the house. These are very good right now in the game, because usually, once again, they're at slightly lower BRs, and at lower BRs, you don't have crazy vehicles that can engage these things, and they usually outrange them quite aggressively, and that's what this vehicle is going to be able to do too. So even though the optics on this thing aren't exactly the best in the world, these Mavericks will do a lot of damage to whatever you decide to fling them at. So it will be 11-3 in air and 11-0 in ground, and that 11-0 in ground can be super spicy for these Mavericks, especially if you know where spawns are, and also you take advantage of the new systems that they're adding in, which is kind of the third-person marking system, making things a lot easier. So overall, you're looking at a vehicle that really can do a lot of pretty cool stuff. And for me, I think that's one of the most important things about this. It can be used in different ways, and it can be used to generally just wander about the place and be a dogfighter and engage people like that, and also sustain quite long in a battle, because even though, you know, you have 2 engines, they don't burn fuel a crazy amount, which is kind of odd. You'd think that they would, but they generally don't. So you're able to, you know, burn off and still have enough for the battle, and even with the afterburner off, you still have a lot of acceleration with this vehicle. So it's much easier to be able to sustain yourself around the place. That's why stuff like the F-5A, the F-5C are such annoying events and premium vehicles to face. Now, radar-wise, it only has a search radar, so this one doesn't have access to anything better than that. One thing to note, though, it does have an ACM, so it's easier to track targets, and as we talked about, it does have the EEGS. Now, both sets of missiles, the Python 3 and the AIM-9Ls, can slave to the radar, which is really nice. But one of the things we also talked about before is this has a head-mounted display that it can use. So you don't actually have to be looking at the target in order to get that target on. So you can just do that, and you don't have to be looking. So if you're engaging something, let's say like this guy, and you want to get it quickly on the target and turn away, you can do. You don't even have to, whoa, you don't even have to point the vehicle towards the target in order to attack it. Now, talking about the cockpit, I'm pretty sure is not just the standard F5 cockpit. You have, of course, the digital HUD here, and then you have some pretty cool factors which are in here. It should technically have its own cockpit that is different from this one, since it was a heavily upgraded F5, but as you can see, it just still looks absolutely beautiful. And with the guns the way that they are, you know, the fact that they do a ton of damage when they hit any target, the fact that this thing is super kind of maneuverable to wander around, you'll always have a good time in an F5. And now, it's just another tree that has access to it. China was the first nation in the game to get access to an F5. America obviously got all of theirs, but it's nice to see that other countries that ended up getting them exported to are also getting them, because they're just really fun. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Being able to just wander around, being able to use the guns as you do, being able to use the missiles, they're just fun just to fling around and have a great time. And this is another vehicle that will be exactly the same. You can see the little countermeasure pod there in the center. As always though, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.